On April 1st, 2006, a 27-year-old medical student walked into a bar in Columbus, Ohio. He was seen by dozens of people. He was captured on security cameras, but he never walked out. To this day, no one knows what happened to him. Brian Shaffer was not the type of person people expected to simply disappear. He was intelligent, responsible, and deeply focused on his future. At 27 years old, Brian was a medical student at Ohio State University, a demanding path that required discipline, long hours, and commitment. Friends described him as calm and friendly. He wasn't reckless, he wasn't impulsive, and he had spent years working toward a career in medicine. But in early 2006, Brian's life took a difficult emotional turn. Just weeks before his disappearance, his mother passed away after a long battle with cancer. Those close to Brian later said the loss deeply affected him. Despite the grief, he continued attending classes and spending time with friends. Outwardly, he appeared to be coping, trying to maintain normalcy during an incredibly painful time. No one believed Brian was suicidal. No one believed he wanted to vanish. And yet, on the night of April 1st, 2006, Brian Shaffer would be seen for the last time. April 1st marked the beginning of spring break. For students in Columbus, Ohio, it was a chance to relax, a brief escape from academic pressure. That evening, Brian made plans to go out with friends, including his longtime friend, Clint Florence. The group visited several bars throughout the night, moving casually through downtown Columbus. Witnesses later described Brian as being in a good mood. He laughed, he talked. Nothing about his behavior seemed unusual. As the night progressed, the group eventually arrived at a popular bar located above a food court, a place called the Ugly Tuna Saloon. It was crowded, loud, busy, and completely ordinary. At approximately 1:55 a.m., Brian Shaffer was captured on surveillance cameras entering the Ugly Tuna Saloon. The footage shows him briefly speaking with two women near the entrance. They appear relaxed. There is no sign of distress. This moment is critical, because it is the last confirmed visual record of Brian Shaffer. Inside the bar, Brian became separated from his friends. At some point, Clint Florence left, assuming Brian had already gone home. That assumption would later haunt him. When morning came, Brian never returned home. At first, Brian's friends assumed he had stayed with someone else. But as hours passed, concern began to grow. Brian missed scheduled flights. He missed commitments. His phone went unanswered. By the next day, his father filed a missing person report. Police immediately began retracing Brian's final known movements. Their focus quickly returned to the Ugly Tuna Saloon. Investigators reviewed hours of security footage from the bar and surrounding areas. What they found was deeply unsettling. The cameras clearly showed Brian entering the bar. They showed dozens of other patrons leaving throughout the night, but Brian was never seen exiting. Every single person who entered after him was accounted for, except Brian. The bar had only one public entrance and exit. No footage showed him leaving. No footage showed him re-entering. It was as if he vanished inside the building. Police searched the bar extensively. They examined restrooms, storage areas, maintenance corridors. They found no signs of a struggle, no blood, no evidence of violence. Brian's friends were questioned and cooperated fully. They passed polygraph tests. There were no ransom calls, no suspicious financial activity, no movement on Brian's phone or bank accounts. Nothing. The investigation reached a dead end almost immediately. Several details made the case even more disturbing. Despite rumors, there was no evidence Brian was intoxicated beyond normal levels. There were no witnesses who saw him in distress, no staff reported any incidents, and despite thorough searches, there was no physical trace of him inside the building. Police eventually concluded that Brian had likely left the bar unnoticed, but without evidence, this explanation raised more questions than answers.
Theory 1. The hidden exit. One theory suggests Brian left through an employee-only exit. Some believe he may have slipped out unnoticed and encountered danger outside. However, investigators found no evidence supporting this theory. Employees denied seeing him, and no cameras captured him outside. Theory 2. Accidental death. Another theory suggests an accidental death occurred inside the bar, perhaps an altercation, perhaps a fall, but again, no evidence. No missing persons matching Brian were ever discovered, and no witnesses came forward. Theory 3. Voluntary disappearance. Some believe Brian intentionally vanished. Supporters of this theory point to his emotional state after his mother's death, but investigators strongly dispute this. Brian left behind his belongings, his money, his future. There was no preparation for a new life. Theory 4. Foul play. The darkest theory suggests foul play, that someone inside the bar knew more than they revealed. But without evidence, this theory remains speculation. No arrests were ever made.
Years passed. The investigation stalled. Brian was legally declared dead in 2013, a painful decision for his family. Yet the case remains open. Every year on April 1st, those who knew Brian are reminded of the unanswered questions. How does someone vanish from a crowded bar? How does a person simply disappear without a trace? The disappearance of Brian Shaffer remains one of the most baffling unsolved cases in American history. No body, no witnesses, no explanation, only silence. What do you believe happened to Brian Shaffer? Share your theory in the comments and subscribe for more real true crime investigations.